evening and welcome to Tinkering with Edkelar. After the rather large and heavy fluke calibrator of the last episodes, I thought it would be a good change to come back to a much more lightweight device again. This little fella here is a Sinclair MTV-1. It was sold under the name Microvision MTV-1 and is a portable black and white TV. It is fully self-contained, which means that this tiny case contains everything needed for TV reception, from the batteries to the high voltage CRT circuits to the tube and the speaker. I doubt that it would have gotten any smaller than this back in the late 1970s. There used to be a British version, the MTV-1B, which omitted the VHF tuner and cut cost and maybe even size slightly. Now let's see what awaits inside. The eBay listing had the device and the carry bag, but not the power brick or the earpiece that would have been sold with it. It was cheap, because apparently it only showed a horizontal line and no proper picture. Now that means that chances are good that it might work again. At least the CRT has some life left and some deflection is working. Digging in. The VHF antenna is just plugged in. The UHF one is a fold-out loop held in place with two screws. And the two screw terminals on the rear are an alternative for the VHF antenna. Speaking of which, I need to find all the other screws. The rear panel is coming off simple enough, but the inner part wouldn't move. Oh, the antenna socket had a cover piece that locked the two parts together. Now it moves. As expected, this circuit is looking a bit, boxy. 3D PCB routing. The front panel is held on with two metal brackets on top and bottom. These screw into the CRT holder and the high voltage PCB, while at the same time holding the speaker in place. The PCBs are connected together with pin connectors, similar to the ones you'd expect in breadboards. This is the first time I see a gold star sticker in a device. Now, is that for well done or you tried? As usual, as soon as I can get to it, I remove the CRT to prevent broken glass. The socket is a bit stuck, so careful prying helps. Apparently, the tiny CRT was originally made for equally tiny scopes, but Sinclair got a white phosphor version instead of a green one. So in theory, the driving circuit might turn any similar spec scope into a TV, as this uses electrical deflection rather than magnetic. So no yoke on this tube. The earphone socket is next. Brr, that plate is grimy. Oh, and more stickers. Quality control was here? There are quite a few electrolytics in here, but first... desoldering the old NiCad cells. These are useless for sure, but at least they don't seem to have excessively leaked in this unit. Only minor crusties here. I think the trace is mostly there even. Good. Recapping. Oh, not to forget a good cleanup of the PCBs, including the original flux. I kept the tuning components as they are because there is little circuit description and even less tuning information for those around. And now, new batteries. The solder tabs on these are a bit wider, so they need some trimming. Originally, there was also a double pack soldered vertically. I remade that with some tape for short protection. Note that little dotted line on the PCB that says link. That's basically what Sir Clive deemed appropriate as a fuse. It's just a tiny wire between two cells. I lost it during desoldering, so I had to replace it eventually. Some of the tiny wires came loose during the process. Fixing them up now. The selection switches are crumbling away. There are 3 on-off style ones, but the little latch that is making the clicky mechanics work is now broken on all 3 of them. They worked when I got it, so the material must be extra brittle. To test the circuit until I can address the switches, I solder in some wire bridges for a test condition. There we go, checking if the current is within reason. That missing link came in very handy for that. And since the on switch is now permanently on, I replaced the link with a momentary switch for testing. The incredibly tight construction makes it very hard to measure and trim certain parts, especially the negative 45 volt supply regulator. I made a few connections with jumper wires for easier access. While trying to dial in the negative 45 volts, I was wondering why it would only go to about negative 35. I was worried that one of the custom ICs was dead, then something went BAM! Sorry, camera wasn't rolling at the time. Whoops! Yes, that would do it. The negative 45 volt capacitor was in upside down. I must have mistakenly soldered by the ground is negative assumption. With the new and correctly polarized capacitor in place, the negative 45 volt is just fine. I even get a picture. And finally, putting my test signal generator to good use and dialing in all the trimmers for the picture. Some are available on the outside, some aren't. The button issue still bugs me though. I don't expect these switches to be available anywhere new, so my best option is to make replacement latches. I tried some soldered copper wire, but the shape is critical in almost all dimensions. My second attempt at 3D printing produced a result that was accurate enough to work with just a little bit of sanding and lots of cursing. Assembling the switches again. Note that the switches aren't working perfectly and I expect the latches to break again at any time. So if there's a known replacement out there, let me know in the comments. Soldering the switch block to the PCB. And final assembly. It took a bit of time to wiggle all the components into shape again. Some electrolytics were at an odd angle to fit into a nook on another board. Fitting the speaker was particularly difficult. The cutout in the PCB is oddly shaped and will fit the speaker terminals only in one very weird way. To finish up the case, putting the stickers back on too. Not to forget my own one. And now, a quick test.
Good evening and welcome to Tinkering with Edkelar. In the previous 2 episodes of the series, I disassembled, cleaned and started to poke around in a Fluke 5100B calibrator. Now, the conclusion. Up next for recapping, the isolation board. It takes the digital control bus on one side and transfers data and address bits over to the instrument bus.
So that's it, a portable TV from the late 1970s. It has been featured on other electronics related YouTube channels already, but so far I have not seen a working one. But then again, I avoid searching for projects if I can. I'm quite happy and I hope it'll stay working for a long time. Thanks for joining in for this retro repair. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time! The selection switches are clumbling. What's clumbling?